Hey guys, it's Chumbumbin. Season of the Deep is here, and with all the changes in place, it's been wild watching everyone experiment with the new items. If only Vesper of Radius could stay enabled long enough to finish my build! Everyone's singing the praises of Arc right now, and for good reason. This artifact is absolutely stacked for it. Tempting as it may be to make a video about the Arc Buddy build I've been using since Season of the Seraph, I want to give a little love to a recently reworked exotic, Chromatic Fire. With the changes to Chromatic Fire and the Void Breach love that's all up in the seasonal artifact, you can walk around with consistent Void Overshield and Devour, turning you into a force to be reckoned with. Let me show you. Now I know some of you are just here for the build, and I completely respect that. Jerk. Exotic is obviously Chromatic Fire. Mods look like this. Subclass looks like this. Make sure you keep an AoE Void weapon in the energy or power slot. Kinetic is dealer's choice. Prioritize resilience, discipline, and recovery. Make your artifact look like this. Now beat it. I'm gonna assume that anyone still here is curious as to how the build works. And it all revolves around Void Breaches. The seasonal artifact this time around added 3 perks of note when it comes to Void. Unto the Breach, which spawns a breach when you kill a Void debuffed enemy as a Void class. Protective Breach, which grants or refreshes overshields when you pick up a breach. And Supernova, which makes your next source of Void damage create a weakening pulse around your target on Void Breach pickup. Seeing as we get so much value from breaches, we can prioritize breach creation in our subclass using the following fragments. Undermining to make our grenades weaken targets. Injunction with Echo of Harvest to make kills on those weakened enemies spawn Void Breaches and Orbs of Powers on a separate cooldown from our seasonal artifact. We can use Starvation to cause breaches and Orbs of Power to give Devour, and extend those on every kill with the aspect Feed the Void. Combining the Overshield given on breach pickup with the consistent healing from Devour kills, you become very hard to kill very quickly in PvE content. There's an extra spot here for both a fragment and an aspect, and it's really up to the user's choice what goes there. Personally, I like Accelerant for Charge Void Vortex to last longer, and Persistence so that way my Devour has a longer natural uptime. But you can tailor it to your comfort. Now, not to cut anyone off, but I can already hear a few of you.
Chumbumbin, if Void Grenades weaken the enemy, couldn't you just use Controverse Hold in this build?
And you're right. Chaotic Exchange can be used for a solid nade uptime and consistent weaken to proc your Void Breaches and Orbs. But there's a benefit to Chromatic Fire that Controverse Hold just can't match. Cost of entry. To help us understand, we're gonna have to discuss the build's flow first. To assist us, we're gonna need the help of Carl the Cabal and his friends. Wave hi, Carl. Okay, Carl. First, we weaken a target. Then we kill that target to drop a Void Breach. Once we pick up that breach, we'll use our AoE Void weapon to hit an enemy and damage them and all their friends with weaken pulses. Next, we kill more targets to refresh the overshield and get our next stack of Supernova. Rinse and repeat ad infinitum. The build is self-perpetuating, but it needs that first weekend to get the ball rolling. Relying on nades or Supernova means that any rotation drop between cooldowns will idle until you get that nade cooldown back. This is where Chromatic Fire comes in. Chromatic Fire has the perk Crystalline Transistor, which says precision final blows from a kinetic weapon create an explosion that deals damage in an AoE and applies an elemental effect based on your subclass. The Void subclass, the effect is weakened. Using Chromatic Fire, you don't need to rely on ability cooldowns to kickstart the build loop. You just need a headshot, giving you a free path into the build cycle at the cost of some extra grenade energy regeneration. Now, let's talk weapons. Given that the build kicks off with precision shots, our best tools are going to be high impact weapons with high precision multipliers. Things like scout rifles and hand cannons stick out as they consistently venture into the 1.6 and higher precision multiplier range. My current go-to option is actually the Malfeasance for a few reasons. Number 1, the gun's a laser. The recoil on it is almost non-existent. At 180 rounds per minute, holding down the trigger will consistently dump the 14 shadow slugs that you have wherever you want without much need for correction. Number 2, the hand cannon has a built-in AoE in the form of a taken explosion that procs after a set number of shots. This normally stuns enemies, but it's even better now that this season has brought back hand cannons as an unstoppable champion option. Number 3, the Malfeasance just got a catalyst that not only gives it 20 more range, but also adds Vorpal as a perk. Since it's a kinetic slot weapon, this means that the gun gets the full advantage of 20% damage boost to mini bosses and bosses on its own merits alone. The Malfeasance has always been a powerful hand cannon on its own, and it's easily one of the best options for this build as you don't really need an exotic in the other slots. It can remain a constant for almost all content you could run with this build. The last 2 weapon slots can really be filled with whatever you like, and should depend on the content and champion pools of whatever you're trying to run. That being said, I highly recommend you fill one of the 2 slots with a void AoE weapon like the Harsh Language or the Regeninant. We've already seen the mods, but I'll show them one more time, just for those of you who need a refresher. I recommend making the staples Kinetic Siphon in the helmet, Firepower in the arms for orb generation, Kinetic Surge in the legs for Malfeasance damage, and Reaper with powerful attraction in the class items. Make sure to slot in a few energy return mods for cooldown reduction to help keep your abilities up, just in case you need them in a pinch. This build is seasonal artifact dependent, so at the end of the day, be sure to jump on it while you still can. At the time of this video, there's about 80 days left of Season of the Deep, and a lot of content left for us to explore. And hopefully, this build will be one of the staples in your loadout slots for the time being. So suit up, start spamming Gambit for that Malfeasance, and try not to cause too much trouble, Guardian.